Hello and welcome. I'm Lee Peterson. I'm the host of WDcast. WDcast is brought to you by WD Partners, whose tagline is Innovation at Scale. And they are at WDpartners.com. And we've put together here a special series where we're talking to experts about what happens after the crisis. So there's only really one critical question, and I think that's the question on everybody's minds. But what I mean by panel of experts is people that are talking to retailers, restaurateurs, grocers every day and what they're saying. So today we have with us Joanne Heyob. She is the SVP of Operations, Strategy, and Design for WD Partners. Hello, Joanne. How are you?
Hey, Lee. I'm doing good. How are you?
So far, so good. I think we've actually had a couple of sunny days here, and it makes a massive difference. And for those of you that are not in Ohio, to have a sunny day is somewhat miraculous.
Yes.
I think we actually have more cloudy days than Seattle. It's fathomable. Okay, Joanne, so, to the crux of what we want to talk about. And again, you are out there talking to people every day and working on projects with people. And they've got to be thinking at this point in time, after 6 to 8 weeks, depending on where you're at, that they're getting ready to come out and they've got a lot of expectations for what they want to do, which is really kind of uncharted territory. But if you could just tell us what you're hearing, that would be awesome. And why don't we start with retail? Like, what are you hearing from retailers in particular?
Yeah, I think the one word that I would say that across the board that people are feeling is anxious. And, anxious to get back to work, anxious to understand what the future is going to be like. There's the retailers right now, have been closed completely, and they're trying to figure out what will be the new normal, right? So what will be the new way that they sell, right? Like selling models, you think about, some of these retailers, it's about the human connection and trying things on in fitting rooms and talking to them. But I think that's something that, is on their mind, as well as with all of, apparel retailers canceling orders and thinking about what is to come for what is the biggest part of the year, which is holiday. How are they going to figure this out? I think they're also thinking about from the merchandising perspective, what is that, 6 feet apart? Can they leverage their fixtures to help with the social distancing? How do they check people out? So, there's a lot of thoughts going in out there, but the one thing is they're anxious. I think they're anxious to get back to work in a good way, but also very anxious about what's to come.
Yeah. And, I guess everybody can empathize with that, right? To an extent. And I keep thinking about grocers, and especially after last week, Kroger put out a playbook that they put out for nothing. They posted it on their site, and the playbook was for all of retail, where they said, we've learned so much because we've been open the entire time. Here's what you should do, in terms of everything you were just talking about, social distancing and, people in merchandising, like how to treat employees, how to talk to employees, what employees should wear. Did you get a look at that playbook at all?
I did. I read it cover to cover to really kind of see, what are the things that Kroger and, other groceries, that have been open, and what have they learned? And, I think one of the things that, I think they've all done and all done in, different waves, if you will, is, figuring out kind of those scrappy grassroots types of ways to get clients in and out of the lines, figuring out ways to keep their employees safe with masks and plexiglass and, gloves and all of those things. But the thing that's been on my mind about, the grocery industry right now is the impact that the curbside pickup and buy online stores had, in the grocery industry. And Leanna, you and I have had tons of email conversations back and forth on this lately. But, the demand is so high, consumer behavior is going to change after, all of this is said and done when we get to whatever our new normal is. And, groceries are going to have to figure out a way to do it profitably with their labor, with, the way that they deploy technology, equipment, refrigeration units, all of those things, they have to figure out to make the margins. And, right now they're able to really, muscle through it in a way that's profitable because the demand's there. But at the end of the day, they're having to pay more pickers to do the work that you and I used to do for free when we go, to the store on a Sunday and get our groceries for the week. So, we've learned a lot from the groceries that have been open. And I think that playbook, if anyone hasn't checked it out, definitely should, because not only does it address, keeping, the consumer safe when they come in, but, really it's important on how they treat their employees and the things that they're doing for them to make them feel safe coming to work. Because, who would have ever thought that, frontline workers would also include, employees at the grocery. So I think there's been kind of a newfound respect and a whole new way that the grocery organization will have to operate in the future.
Well, even their warehouse workers, right? I think Amazon's finding that out right now too, that those are frontline workers that they probably should have paid a little bit more attention to. It's not just about being overwhelmed or speeding up, it's about safety right now, or at least at the very least, like the perception of safety, making sure that you're safe, maybe overly safe. So do you think, grocers are kind of on the front line of all this, and they've been ahead of the curve because they had to be. They were deemed essential and they were open. Do you think if you're any other retailer, even a small retailer, that you should pay attention to what they're doing? And then how does that translate? Like Whole Foods in our neighborhood made all their aisles one way. Is that something you see translating across retail? Do you see Best Buy having one-way aisles?
I think, maybe at the start, once things start to really open up and people start to feel a little bit comfortable, but not all the way there yet to where they were in the past. So I think right now consumers are easily adapting to this new normal because now there's something in it for them. It's their safety, it's their health. So I think, initially people are going to try a lot of different things. They're going to try, if they had curbside before, they're going to figure out a new way to do curbside. If they didn't, they're going to do it. But I think a lot of places are going to, think about, the number of people in the capacity, one-way aisles, having, whether it's, quick sanitation stations when you walk in for you to clean your hands and get gloves or, masks if you don't have it. So I think that there's going to be a lot of change with that. But I think that right now, if anything that this pandemic has taught us is, I think, a little bit of patience and being able to be okay following the rules because it's about your own personal safety. So if they say it's one-way aisles, then everyone's going to do one-way aisles, or they're not going to be able to shop there. So I think that that's where, when you think of retailers, grocers, restaurants, all those places, the consumer is going to feel pretty good about the measures that they're taking, or they won't shop there.
What about delivery? Like one of the things that grocers are experimenting with is delivering. And I always think, that the cost is always mentioned, and it's mostly, like you were saying before, a cost that they didn't have. And so now it's a new cost. But I always think about pizza places, for example. Pizza places have always delivered. There's never a question like if pizza places make money. They obviously, a lot of them, there's Granddad's Pizza here in Grandview and Upper Arlington, and they've been in business for like 50 years delivering. So do you think that's going to become much more prevalent, like delivery from, fill in the blank, from anybody, from Best Buy?
I do. I mean, I think that that will be the way to go if they want to keep the consumer shopping with them. So I think they will experiment with different ways of shopping. And, when people really want that contactless delivery, right? They're still taking it inside their house. They're still wiping everything down and doing those precautions. But I do. I mean, even one of the local running stores here, you can call them and tell them what shoes you want, and they will bring it to your house within 3 hours.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, yeah. And they're also doing, curbside and, offering free shipping if you want that, because they want to make sure that they, do things that's right for the consumer now. So, yeah, I mean, I see, grocery going to more delivery, but with that, there's a lot of complex operations that go in with that. As you think about, will someone be home? Do you do what Walmart tested, which was actually bring it into your home and stock it into your refrigerator through their employees? Is everything shipped on dry ice? All of those things. Is it just non-perishable items that, can get delivered? So there's a lot of, exciting operational things, speaking as an operator, that can be done as we think about these things. But it's going to be, I think, a slower transition to delivery of some of those things than maybe others.
Yeah, one of the things that, there's always the glass half full. There's a lot of tragic things about what just happened in the last couple of months. But one of the things that is glass half full is now we're finally getting the retail world, which includes grocery, restaurants, whoever, to catch up to what the customer has really kind of always wanted. And, since the advent of Netflix and downloading movies and everything like that, customers like to stay at home. They like to watch movies, et cetera, et cetera. So to call up and have your grocery delivered is a huge, huge thing. And so because of this, the timeline just got accelerated. And now, to your point, they almost have to do it, right?
Yeah. I was talking to one of our clients, and he said, we have had to change our operations more in the last 6 weeks than we have in the last 10 years.
Wow. Yeah.
Based on the consumer. And, this just forced change. And, if you weren't there before, you are like leapfrogging to get where you need to be for the consumer. And, I think you said it best, what they've wanted along the way. And a lot of places haven't delivered on that. And now, because people are at home, people can't get out, people don't want to get out, to get their goods in hand, they've had to up their technology game, they've had to up their delivery game, and figure out how do they even replenish differently. The groceries have had to shorten their hours of operation to keep up with the demand to replenish their aisles. So that is a huge change and a shift from, when they used to do, the replenishment, overnight stocking and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think you're right on with that.
From a perspective too, just, physical retail, regardless of what category, just getting smaller. It's going to be smaller, and you knew it was going to happen. It was going to take 15 years to happen. It was going to be a slow death spiral for a lot of retailers, and now that just got accelerated too. So it'll be interesting. Simon Malls are going to start opening, and they're the largest landlord out there right now, and the precautions they're taking, and the shortened hours, the only a couple entrances will be open so they can monitor the amount of people that are in there is something they've never had to think about before. You want the malls to be as full as possible and every parking spot, completely filled. But, those places that even do, valet parking. I read an article that some of the malls won't do valet parking because they don't want the people congregating in certain areas of close proximity to entrances or to each other. So, or they don't want people in their car. So again, huge thing that was a benefit before is now seen as, kind of taboo. So last category, or one of the broadest categories of retail, even though they don't like to consider themselves retailers, is restaurants. And, I think probably the hardest hit vertical out there where, you close a restaurant or you take your, pickup business only, uh, it's 30% of your business max, 25, 30% of your business. So what do you see happening on the other side of this with restaurants?
Yeah, I mean, it's so unfortunate what's happened with the restaurants. They definitely have been hardest hit, I think. But, I think one of the things when they are allowed to, open and, people are cautious about it, not only do they have to, do the social distancing and, making sure that people are, at 6 feet apart, thinking about their dining room space and, precautions for their, serving staff and gloves and masks. You also got to think about they've always been in the business of food safety, cleanliness, and all of those things. And they kind of kept that, on the back burner. They don't really talk about that as much, right? Like that's just what they do. And I think now more than ever, that's what they're going to have to project to, the consumers. Like, here's everything we do to make sure that, our restaurants are clean and sanitized. Here's what we do to prepare your food in a way that you can feel good about. Installing, temporary sanitation stations, at the, at entrances, calling out if they have self-cleaning materials within their stores, like bronze, copper, things like that like within their handles, and letting the consumers know that it's safe to come back in. So what they've always been really good at, I think they need to play up even more to build that trust with the consumer so they can come back and enjoy it. And, I read an article this morning that I think it's in Tennessee and Georgia. I think Applebee's and an IHOP opened, and I'm curious to kind of see how the consumer goes back, into those restaurants and kind of, what that's really going to do because places like that, are kind of everywhere. They're kind of like, the QSRs fast casual of the QSR world. And I think that there's just, a lot that we're going to learn. But, I think for them, it's going to have to build that trust back with the consumer.
They're going to have to hype up delivery too, because they're not going to be able to get the capacity in their dining rooms, right? I mean, they're going to have to do distancing.
They're going to have to, distancing. They're going to have to, think of ways if they've always used, kiosks in their store to order, they're going to have to do away with those, leverage, downloading our app, ordering online while you're even in the store. If you want to, kind of do it that way where you can order your food and still dine in, but you're not having the, as many transaction points and touch points with individuals. So, the technology is going to be huge.
They're also going to have to do Applebee's or, who fill in the blank is going to have to do what Granddad's Pizza figured out 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Figure out how to do delivery profitable with the insurance that goes along with it and all those things. That somehow Granddad's is doing it. Hello, Apple. Yeah. Because I can't see them making up, the revenue they're going to lose out of the dining rooms, right?
Yeah, because what they do in delivery is going to go to the third-party delivery agent, right? So, the margin that, even if they get delivery up from, 10, 15% to 30, 40, 50% of their business, let's say, every delivery order that goes out.
Applebee's delivery cars.
Yeah. Because they, they're giving more of their margin away to the third-party delivery agents that do it so well and so seamlessly.
Yeah. Okay. One kind of big overarching question, and it really depends on the vertical, like a restaurant or a grocery store or a regular retailer, fill in the blank. But what do you think of dark stores? And, there's, 6 terms for that, like cloud stores and all this stuff. But basically, they're stores without storefronts that you can't necessarily go into unless you have a problem or something, but pickup and delivery only. And in some cases, like they're doing this in LA now, and I know Kroger's testing it, et cetera. But that's it. I mean, they deliver and you can go there, drive through and pick up, or you deliver. You see a future in that?
I do. I think that before, some of the research we've done, the consumers were kind of like, not sure I feel good about like not, this kind of dark store, ghost kitchen type thing or whatever. But I think now, before, and now I think people are okay with that. Like, as long as they can get what they need, I think people are going to warm up to that. And, whether it's, in the grocery industry going to, micro fulfillment centers and really consolidating orders that way, or, pickup only stores. I think even retailers will shift into, do they do more showroom and more, curbside pickup, or you order online and you just, pick up at the curb and you avoid the entire in-store experience, that you really go and get what you need. And it's kind of that hands-free, like put it in my trunk and go.
For sure, it's going to be a decade of change, right? I mean, it's a decade of change across the spectrum like we've never seen before.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, one last question. Like, we need from you a bold prediction, or it doesn't even have to be bold. Like, what's your prediction for the rest of this year? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still really hooked on this whole supply chain and the change that's going to happen with it, because when you think about all the disruption in the last 6-8 weeks, everything has to change with supply chain. Getting products there, whether it's faster, it's in bulk, it's, delivered in a different way at a different time. I think that there's still so much opportunity in the supply chain, especially once everything starts to open back up. It will really be tested to see how quickly things can get back to whatever the new normal is from a, supply and demand. We saw the opportunities with everybody hoarding hand sanitizer. There's none to be found still. And, it's about, and it's about how quickly can product get to market. And I think that applies to, food, apparel, anything in a restaurant, equipment, all of that is in there. I think this is a very unpredictable time. And I think that it's going to impact us, for years to come. But I think the supply chain is where it really starts, because that fuels all the businesses.
Yeah, I even read some along this, but I mean, I even read something about like the supply chain becoming almost more nationalistic. Mm-hmm. Like, why are we making all of our medicine in a foreign country? Why are we making all of our, PPE, which is so crucial, all around the world? Why aren't we making that type of thing here, just in case something happens? And now that we know that it can, you can see a lot of that changing. So we're not, getting massive container shipments of masks from Thailand or something like it. It seems kind of crazy at this point in time. It's almost to your point about, which is a great one, I think, about supply chains. It's almost a point in time to kind of reanalyze where we're getting everything from. And then once you have an emergency, how far out on the limb are you in terms of that supply chain? And, if it happens in another country, if it happens in a country that you're really closely associated with, which I, don't have to mention any names at this point in time, but then what? Then you can't get essential equipment yourself. So great.
Right.
Okay. Joanne, thank you very much. A lot of really interesting points I certainly haven't thought of, so I appreciate that. And everybody, you can tune in to us at wdpartners.com. Go up to the hamburger, open up the hamburger on the bottom. You'll see the little icon for podcasts. Click on that, and we have several on there from Google, a few CEOs, et cetera, et cetera. So please do that. And I'm going to leave you with this quote, which I found the other day, which I think is more apropos than a lot of quotes I've seen. But no school develops more great leaders than Adversity University. It's just a little cheesy, but anyway, keep that in mind. So thank you very much. Stay frosty out there and stay safe.